lesson, we're looking at the first standard under civics and government. The student will describe the role of citizens under Georgia's Constitution. And the purpose for this is so that after studying this standard, you will be able to understand and be able to explain several of the key concepts concerning Georgia's present Constitution. These concepts include knowing the basic structure or the setup of the Constitution and of our government, the separation of powers, explaining the separation of powers and checks and balances, the rights and responsibilities of citizens, voting qualifications in elections, and you should also be able to explain the role of political parties in Georgia, which should be very easy for you since we just did that in our last lesson. So the first element has us looking at explaining the basic structure of the Georgia State Constitution. Georgia has had 10 constitutions since 1777, and each of these constitutions set the guidelines for those who governed the state and outlined the rights and responsibilities of Georgia's citizens. The first constitution, it was called the Rules and Regulations, and it was just under a provisional government until a permanent constitution could be established. So our first permanent constitution was in 1777, but there was a very weak executive branch and allowed for a strong legislative branch. The current constitution, legislators began writing the current constitution in 1977, and it was approved by the state citizens in 1983. The Constitution is broken up into 11 articles, and it is 89 pages long. The articles outline the rights, rules, regulations, and procedures for both the citizens and the state government. So the articles include the preamble, which states the purpose for the Constitution. The Article 1 is the Bill of Rights, which states the specific rights guaranteed by the Constitution, such as life, liberty, and property. Article 2 is voting in elections. It sets the qualifications and rules for elections. Article 3 is the legislative branch, and it describes the structure and powers of the General Assembly, which is what our legislative branch is called, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Article 4, constitutional boards and commissions. This sets up government bodies such as the Public Service Commission, the State Transportation Board, and the Board of Pardons and Paroles. Article 5 is the executive branch, and it establishes the offices and powers of the governor and lieutenant governor. Article 6 is the judicial branch, and it establishes the court system. Article 7, taxation and finance, authorizes power to tax and purposes and methods of taxation. So what kind of taxes will be imposed on people within our state. Article 8 is education. This establishes the public education system, which is supported by taxes, and the Board of Education to oversee it. Article 9, counties and municipal corporations. This describes the powers and structure of county governments. And Article 10 would be amendments to the Constitution. This describes the process for amending the Constitution. These aren't the actual amendments themselves. And then Article 11 would be miscellaneous provisions. So I'm going to pause here and let you take a look at the constitutional amendment process in Georgia. So it has to be proposed by the General Assembly or a constitutional convention, and then the House of Representatives and Senate must approve with a 2/3 vote. And then the people in the next general, it's voted on by the people in the next general election, and if the majority favors the amendment, it becomes part of the Constitution. And the ratified amendment takes effect the following January 1st.